Music legend Brian Wilson, who founded the Beach Boys, died just recently at the age of 82. If you're like me, you can probably sing so many of his hits by heart. Good Vibrations. Good Vibrations. Help Me Rhonda. Help me Rhonda, help me Rhonda. And Surfin U.S.A. But it's the real story behind Brian Wilson that makes him such an inspiration, particularly to someone like me that focuses on mental health, mental illness, and the struggle between the two. Here's how the obituary headlines describe Brian Wilson. Beach Boy, rock and roll visionary. Summer's poet laureate. Papa tour and leader. Troubled genius. Why a troubled genius? Well, you may know some of this story. Some of it you may not. Brian was abused by his father when he was growing up. He was controlled and really struggled dealing with all of that. He had mental health struggles that led him into isolation, even at the height of the Beach Boys' success. At a time when you would think he would be on top of the world and really basking in the glory and the adulation and having fun, these were often hellish times for him. We know that because he talks about it. He told people about it. He actually experienced audio hallucinations and was later diagnosed as schizoaffective disorder. He suffered from drug addiction, and by 1973, he rarely left his Bel Air home. He lived in isolation and just didn't feel comfortable getting out into the world and being around other people. His book describes his first mental breakdown on a plane in 1964. He was traveling to Houston for a concert, and he just got overwhelmed. And he started crying and making shrieking noises. Even then, he struggled to control himself. He screamed into a pillow and just spun out of his seat, was really down on the cabin floor, just doing everything he could to keep it together. At the concert, his opening band found Brian in his dressing room, just staring off into space, oblivious to anything or anyone around him. And what they described sounded to me like he had become catatonic, where he was just kind of frozen in time and space. Now, not long after that, he stepped away from the band for over a decade. And he said, and I quote, "I felt I had no choice. I was run down mentally and emotionally because I was running around, jumping on jets from one city to another on one-night stands." He didn't cave. He fought back, and his struggles led him to help others. And fortunately, he chose to be transparent about this at a time when you just didn't do that. I mean, now it's easier. It's still not easy. But at the time he was dealing with this in the 70s and 80s, you just didn't talk about this stuff openly. But he was very upfront in addressing his mental health issues. He partnered with the organization Change Direction, volunteers who provide free mental health services to service members, veterans, and their families. And for the longest time, he was a strong advocate of therapy and healthy living. In a 2006 article, he said, "I walk 5 miles a day in the morning. I eat really good food, and I use my love with people. I use love to get along with people." He did have a problem with drugs, and he publicly blamed Dr. Gene Landy for hooking him on LSD. For years, he said he heard threatening voices while he was performing on stage. And can you imagine having to navigate all that? You're hearing voices, you're having to perform, you're in front of thousands and thousands of people. The overstimulation had to be mind-boggling. He said he heard very threatening voices. He would hear the message, "We're coming for you, Brian. This is the end, Brian. We're going to kill you, Brian." And he clearly thinks that the voices came from his use of LSD, which altered the neurotransmitters of his brain. and gave him all these threatening messages. Like I say, he wasn't a quitter. He didn't cave. He faced his demons head on. He went about this in his own way. Not to use a cliche, but he really did walk to the beat of his own drum. He failed music class in high school. He reunited with music school teacher Fred Morgan years down the road. And Morgan told him, "You failed my class, but you scored big in music." He did have amazing creativity and he had incredible drive. And he pushed the boundaries. Good vibration. This was a revolutionary process. There were 17 recording sessions, 90 hours of tape, and then assembling the song from fragments. People just didn't do this at the time. So go listen to it and think about how it was put together. You probably hear it and think, well, they're just a bunch of guys in a room having a bunch of fun. And it was all just 90 hours of tape. Now, during the British invasion, he didn't get jealous. He didn't get threatened. He befriended John Lennon and Paul McCartney, and the three continually checked in and pushed themselves toward even greater achievement. And that's not the way it was with a lot of American artists at the time. Whether you're talking about Elvis or others, a lot of people thought, whoa, wow, is this the end? I mean, are we completely being pushed out of relevancy and over to the side? That wasn't the case here. Look, so what's the conclusion here? What happens behind the music can sometimes be as interesting and compelling and as important as the music itself. Look at his relationship with the Beatles. He treated others with dignity and respect. His relationship with his music teacher. He turned failure into one of the greatest musical success stories of all time. He didn't give his power away and let someone tell him you're not good enough. He didn't let that failure experience define him. He said, no, I'm not going to listen to that. I know who I am. I know what I've got. It all came down to that relationship with himself. He had consequential knowledge that was creativity and of classical music. He mastered it and he did it on his own. And despite all the ups and downs, despite all the demons, all the excuses to quit, all the excuses to just become a hermit, he lived his life with intention and purpose. He decided to be who he was on purpose and to own it and define it, and to heal others. So when you think about Brian Wilson and you enjoy that music, enjoy it knowing the real story. Wherever you're getting the real story, make sure you subscribe and follow. I'll see you Monday. Hey, Dr. Phil here. My network, Merit TV, has it all.
Now, let me blow your mind.
Merit TV's got the news that matters.